So, good morning. I'm David Sobel. I mostly herald from Antioch University, New England, and Keene, New Hampshire. I love coming to places that are trying to support this whole idea of nature play. It's been something I've been working on for the last 30 or 40 years. So, denying kids a chance to encounter nature robs them of the very essence of life, right? And this is the big issue that we're dealing with. This concern over crime and children's safety is linked with the decreasing amount of time children spend outside. So this is why nature play areas have become important, because we're concerned, this is really important for kids, and yet our anxiety about kids being outside generically means that we have to kind of design play areas where they can do this. So here's reasons for diminishing outdoor play. You know this stuff. Increasing screen time, structured activities, working mothers. It's less working mothers. I should change this into either single parents or multiple working parents. So here's a colleague of mine named Sharon Danks wrote a great book recently called From Asphalt to Ecosystems about converting schoolyards to more natural play areas. Spent a lot of time in Berlin with playground designers. The insurance companies in Berlin have done actuarial research and have determined that people who as kids who had riskier childhoods, more physically active childhoods, grow up to be adults who have fewer accidents and therefore submit fewer insurance claims and therefore are better for the insurance companies. Therefore, they're encouraging the playground designers to design playgrounds with more risk elements so that kids will have the physical experience, which will then have them grow up to be people that submit fewer insurance claims. You find this reference to two different sources of when environmentalists say, well, this is why I became an environmentalist. They talk about these two things: many hours spent outdoors in a keenly remembered wild or semi-wild place, and an adult who taught respect for nature. And here we've got basically the two parameters that are part of the design construct for the nature play area, right? It's a semi-wild place, and there's mentors that are going to model respect for nature and also engagement with nature. Here's another kind of interesting for instance of this. Was done in Taiwan, where kind of over multiple generations, kids in the 70s had access to play in an open stream, and then in the 80s the stream became partially culverted. In the 90s it was gone, and in the early 2000s they reconstructed an artificial watercourse where the old one had been, so that kids could then have access to it. So as the access to the stream, the playable stream, went away, then when they became adults, they had less disposition towards environmentally related activities. And then, as the stream came back, then you could start to see, then when those kids have grown up, which is just now, they're starting to have more disposition towards environmental activities. So there's kind of, again, this correlation between play in childhood and adult behavior. If kids play outside, they are inherently more physically active. So they burn more calories, a lot of increase in the interesting relationship between obesity prevention and outdoor play. Children with more nature near their homes are more resistant to stress, lower incidence of behavioral disorders. Kids with attention deficit disorder, their symptoms are reduced as a function of contact with nature. So some physicians are starting to prescribe outdoor nature activity as, in addition to or instead of drug-related therapies for attention deficit disorder. Outdoor play encourages collaboration. Kids who play together in nature have more positive feelings towards each other. So lots of different benefits. What's happened is this decreasing access of kids to the natural world. that's potentially problematic in terms of their health and in terms of their future environmental attitudes and behavior. Therefore, natural play areas like Grasshopper Grove are a good thing. Therefore, land trust encouraging nature play on their properties, a good thing. Does a girl have a recollection of a relationship with a specific tree? And so describe the tree.
It's a crabapple tree.
Yep.
And everybody had their room in the crabapple tree.
Mm-hmm.
So we would climb the tree and everybody had their areas of the tree that were their rooms in the tree. And we brought books up there and we would eat up there.
Right.
And it was in the very back of my yard.
Girls want to have this relationship, and it's usually with an individual tree. It's not generically trees, right? It's a tree. So we should be thinking about how do we want to cultivate. We want to cultivate this broader sense of environmental affinity and care. So one of the vehicles is developing relationships between individuals and trees, right? So all of you have very similar kinds of play experiences. When you have access to the natural world, relatively safe environments, kids tend to do the same things over and over. And so I've identified those as play motifs. And so regardless of environment or cultural settings, kids do these things around the world. But what I want to do is identify what these recurrent play motifs are and then turn them into design principles. So kids do these things around the world, and therefore they are these recurrent patterns like the girls in the trees or forts, creating special places. Therefore, these things have some inherent value to them. But it also helps you to think about what kind of behaviors and activities are we going to encourage in these settings. Because if you have these as kind of design tools, then you say, okay, well, let's construct activities that use the environment to encourage these kinds of behaviors. And so that's what I want to look at. So here's the different play motifs that become design principles. So special places, special place stuff. Each one of these play motifs has its own little developmental trajectory, and so different manifestations of the play form at different ages. And so what kids want are loose parts, right, which is pieces, lots of little pieces that are manipulable that you can use to construct stuff in new ways. And so nature play areas benefit from having a lot of loose parts around. Joseph Chilton Pearce says that we move through a series of matrices, and so essentially the task in developmental terms is to create this bond with the physical world, starting halfway through the mother and family matrix. So starting around 4 to 7, you're starting to move out into this matrix. The 4 to 7-year-old period is the age frame that the nature play area, Grasshopper Grove, is intended to address. So small world play, so the whole fairy house thing, impulse, kind of natural impulse on kids, I think really valuable. Yes, which materials are we going to be able to use, which can't we use? You kind of have to create parameters for that. So for instance out here, figuring out how to encourage small world play, right, is a good thing to think about. And then these sandboxes with stuff, right, with more loose parts. And so I love these kinds of things. So there is an area in Grasshopper Grove that has water play options. So this is what I mean about play opportunities in natural areas, is that you want to cultivate, you want to make the accoutrement available so kids can play at stories. Here's some different forms of animal allies. Right, and then structures that encourage animal allies. These are, birds, kid-sized bird nests, and then bird blinds, inappropriate places that allow kids to watch bird behavior. And the nice thing here is that this is a climbing structure, right?
Yeah.
All this stone becomes like the way you get up, right? It's nice the way in which the stone wall is constructed out here. The same kind of thing. It's constructed for kids' challenging play. So the point there was using these play motifs as design principles to figure out, okay, what kind of activities do we want to support for kids? So how do we encourage special play in the natural play area or in land trust? How do we encourage or accept making small worlds? So it's great to see nature play in some of that pudding stone in Central Park. You know, those big outcrops of kind of smooth stone. She basically walk her kids over to this one big patch of pudding stone. So other play, so in this same piece of pudding stone, other little special place creation, other small world creation. You know, filling up some of the declivities with piles of leaves and jumping into them. And so all of these little different kinds of play motifs happening in this one piece of pudding stone. And then everybody's packing up to go away, and I'm there because I'm writing some notes. And this kid had left something there, so he leaves and then comes back and picks up his lunchbox or whatever it is, and he's not really paying attention to anybody. He says, "Thank you, rock," right? Of his own volition. This is the basis for the conservation behavior, right? So the play at the rock engages that kid's affinity for the rock, and therefore it's this kind of appreciation, empathy, and that's going to become environmental behavior.